Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Welcome to our most latest episode of MSP Insights. Today's a big day. I'm really excited to be joined by RIchard Tubb. RIchard, a laundry list of history and experience working in the MSP space. Let's take a look at someone that is continuing to drive innovation right down to your business today, leader of the IT business growth expert. RIchard, fill us in. How are you today?
I'm very well indeed. What a pleasure to be talking to you, Jeff. And just before we came on air, I was just admiring the backdrop that you've got going there in Datto in upstate New York, isn't it?
One of the best places to hang. If you're in Rochester, you're a Datto partner, come visit me. We will sit in that space, kick back, tell stories. Some will be true, most will be lies. And at the end of the day, we'll believe all of it. So we'll be better humans because of it. Well, thanks for joining me from across the pond. You know, I think before we get into today's episode, there's a lot we could unpack about your experience. Let's go on the journey. Over 20 years of experience working with MSPs. And when I think about working with MSPs, I think about your time, two-time author, your podcast, your experience as an owner-operator, going through the build, going through the moments of walking away of running it, now to the realities of how you're growing Tech Tribe. RIchard, first person, talk to me a little bit about how you got into the business of the MSP. What was day one for you?
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. So up front, I will say I am a massive tech geek. Like I have always, ever since I was a kid, loved playing with technology. So I'm very thankful to the IT industry because God only knows what I'd be doing if I wasn't doing IT. You know, it's kept me on the straight and narrow. So with that said, I started out in corporate IT. So my background was I worked for companies like Ernst & Young, the National Health Service, GE Capital, you know, people like that. What I learned while I was doing the consultancy there was the benefit of scalability, of standardization, documentation, those sort of. So what happened, Jeff, when I started my IT business, when I went out on my own, I brought all of that knowledge, all of those ideals across. And so I started out as your typical one-man band, or one-person band, I should say. And I was crawling under desks, plugging cables in, you know, setting up machines and things of that nature. And that was okay. You know, I essentially owned my own job. But what I really wanted to do was to be a business owner. So if we rewind a little bit, and I'm trying to remember the timeline, I'm going to say maybe about 2005, I read one of what I say is one of the three life-changing books for me. I read a book that I'm hoping that your listeners will be very familiar with, and it's a book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Very famous book. And if any of your listeners have not read this book, hey, look, if there's one thing you take away from mine and Jeff's conversation here today, go to read the E-Myth, because it's nothing at all to do with managed services, and it's everything to do with managed services. But what it taught me was the value in building a business that can run without me. So from there on in, I started building this business that, you know, instead of relying on me, the business just ran, and I could do what I wanted to do what I enjoyed doing within the business, but the business could run without me. And around this time, Jeff, I was really, really fortunate. You and I were talking about this before we came on air, how we've both learned so much from the smartest, most successful people in this industry, who in my experience, and I'm pretty sure you'll probably agree with this, they give so freely of their time and experience to other people. And they did so with me. I spent a lot of time in the US. I spent a lot of time keeping my mouth closed, keeping my ears open, and learning from the best people in our industry. And so, cut a long story short, fast forward to, I think it was 2011, I built this business, this MSP business, managed services business that could run without me. And then a life event happened. So people ask me, why did you sell your IT business? It was a life event. So unfortunately, my dad passed away. He was a ripe old age. He was 82 years of age. You know, he'd had a really good innings, but it still came as a shock, as it does, you know, a massive life event. And I was at his funeral, Jeff, and there was people turning up at his funeral from the past 30 odd years that he'd probably not spoken to in 25, 30 years. And they were turning up and they were speaking so highly of him, saying, hey, your dad won't remember this, but he helped me, get a foot up on the ladder, or he made an introduction, or, all these wonderful things. And I was there and I thought, yeah, legacy, like your legacy, what's going to be said about you when you're gone? And I looked at what I was doing with the MSP business and said, you know what? At this stage, I actually enjoy speaking to my peers, the owners of other IT businesses, and helping them to avoid all of the many, many mistakes that I'd made along the way. That's what I want to do. So I was very fortunate. I was able to sell the business quickly. And for the past, I think it's coming up to sort of 10, 12 years now, I've been writing books. I've been doing podcasts. I've been doing videos. I've been on social media. I've been speaking to user groups. I've been speaking to people like yourself, and just essentially sharing my journey, sharing all the mistakes that I made along the way, so that other people, other IT business owners, can avoid them and live a better life. Because there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Learn from the mistakes that I made. Take the easy route to getting there and live a happier life as a result of it. So that brings us to where we are today.
It's fascinating to see how you had that life event that clicked a light bulb on for you. And as you were chatting, I took a note, ultimately the great question, what is your legacy and how do you want to be remembered? And as you and I were chatting, prior to this episode, we talked a lot about how powerful it can be when you can lean in with somebody and share information. One of the great quotes I often look at: in a world where we are drowning with information, we are in search of wisdom. And the piece that I love about what you bring to the business is the wisdom. It's the moment in time where you can leverage someone who has experienced something, has reflected on it, has learned from it, and then has implemented a positive change into the business. That's the piece that I find to be so refreshing in what you talk about, right? We live, I think, in a world today where people can't wait to get on social media and have platitudes and these little bursts of energy. But it's more than just the, okay, I feel good. It's the, show me how to do it, right? Show me how to do it. Let's make sure we've got an inspection of the expectation. And that's the refreshing piece when I take a look at what you're sharing and the direction you're going into. So I think this episode, again, is going to be one of these where our viewers are going to walk away going, wow, okay, I can take that and put it into my business. So let me ask you a follow-up question then, because again, decades of experience, you start the business, you have your aha moment, you pivot. Now you're in a new direction, still working in the space, but I think if anything, it almost becomes even a more powerful space because you're getting so many perspectives from different MSPs, different sizes, different leaders. I'm sure though you're finding out there is no such thing as a new problem. There are just a lot of old problems where people are living through them for the first time. What do you think has changed the most in the MSP space from start to what we see now in your journey?
Yeah, so I was doing a presentation a few weeks ago, or I was interviewed on stage at a big IT conference in London. And the question that I was asked is, if you were to start an MSP again tomorrow, what would it look like? And I love that question because, first of all, I say I would not start an MSP again tomorrow because, I get much more of a kick out of what I'm doing at the moment. However, the big change that I reflected on when I was on stage about that question is, when I was running an MSP back in the day, cybersecurity was a thing. Of course it was. You keep your clients safe. But if we fast forward to today, holy cow, cybersecurity is top of mind. And, instead of just looking after people's infrastructure, we fast forward to today and it is a full-time job, the cybersecurity piece of it. So, if I was to run an MSP again today, the first thing that I would do is seek out partners, seek out experts who can help me with the cybersecurity piece. Because with the best will in the world, that scene, that cybersecurity scene is running at a pace that no one person or no one company can keep up with. And I'll give a shout out for Datto here, as well as other vendors in the space. you collaborate with other vendors on the security piece because you realize nobody can do this on their own. The bad guys out there are against challenges to us that there's no one person or company that can deal with it. And so Datto, I've seen all the work that you're doing, collaborating with others, raising the bar within the managed service provider space on the cybersecurity piece. But really, in answer to your question, if I was going to do an MSP again tomorrow, goodness me, I wouldn't try and do cybersecurity on my own. I would definitely get that help from the superheroes who can really enable me to sleep at night knowing that my customers have been well looked after.
It's a really powerful statement that you just went into when you talk about cybersecurity and the vulnerabilities that are out there today. Because to be completely transparent with you, it's probably one of the biggest challenges we see today as Datto, and making sure that we're putting MSPs in the best position to be successful. And you hit on a great point, the willingness to collaborate, right? We understand that there are the realities of saying, here's what we're very good at today, and here's where we've got great opportunity to collaborate and bring in best in the space to make sure that MSPs are put in the best position to be successful. So thank you for the kind words. When you think about what we're doing today as we look to set every MSP up to be successful. Let me ask you though, do you think with what we see in today's world of these great threat actors, the new realities where once upon a time, cybersecurity was something that was, well, just in banking. And then it was something, well, that's just more of enterprise retail. Well, now cybersecurity is small to medium-sized businesses. And we've got some great threat actors. Do you think that's probably one of the biggest challenges for the MSP today, to come to the realization that they are a target in the SMB space?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think for the longest time, managed service providers have been the key holders to this kingdom of riches, and I'm talking about their clients. Yep. I'm here in for those watching on the video. You'll see I'm not at home in the studio garage at the moment. I'm in an Airbnb that I've hired out in Castle Donington, because last night I was at the Tech Tribe local meetup, the East Midlands group. I'm going to be at another one in the West Midlands in a couple of days. And the conversations that I'm having with MSPs who are there is around the sleepless nights they're having over cybersecurity. And, I think it's taken a long time for MSP owners to realize that they are the key holders. They've got the keys to the kingdom. If you hack an MSP, if a bad actor gains access to an MSP from whatever angle, from whatever trajectory, whatever vector, they've then got access to 50, 100, 200, 1,000 clients. And each of those clients might have 10, 50, 200, 1,000 seats. Wow, we are talking an incredible amount of riches here. This is like, so basically hacking an MSP is like gaining the keys to Fort Knox, because you've got all of these different vaults that you can then just unlock and all of the riches to be found in there. So I think it's taken a long time for MSPs to realize we are in a really privileged position here. We have got a ton of responsibility. We've got a lot of power, and I'm a comic book nerd, Jeff. So, we all know that phrase from Peter Parker, Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. But my goodness, MSPs need to wake up and absolutely take it seriously. And if I can get on my soapbox for a moment here about the responsibility that MSPs have, I'm speaking to some MSPs who take the attitude with their clients of do as I say, don't do as I do. And what I mean by that is they will extol the virtues of, say, multi-factor authentication to their clients. They will talk about strong passwords. They will talk about physical security. And then I've spoken to them, and their engineers have turned off MFA because it's too much of a pain. And they're using the same password for multiple sites. And I've gone to MSP's offices, and their comms room doesn't have a lockable door. It doesn't have, there's no security there. There's a vacuum cleaner stood next to the server. Now, of course, I'm talking about the extreme examples here, Jeff, but you cannot speak to your clients about how they should stay safe if you are not practicing it yourself. It's absolutely crazy. And so in North America, I know the phrase is eat your own dog food. In Europe, the French tend to say drink your own champagne. The point here is you've got to walk the walk and, not just talk the talk. You've got to live the life that you want your clients to live, because sooner or later, you're going to get caught out. And clients are more savvy than ever. If they're looking and saying, do you do this stuff? And you can't with a straight face say, yeah, they're not going to do it themselves. So we've got to, as MSPs, lead by example. I'll get off my soapbox there, Jeff, but I'm huge on that point there.
Now, I agree with you, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the first thing I think a prospect or client is going to ask you is, well, what are you doing, right? And if you can't honestly answer that question, that you're not implementing the recommendations that you're giving, how do you become believable in your business, right? Start at phase one, understand it, live through it. What I found out very quickly is I love the French term. I'm more about the champagne business than the dog food business. So one more win for the French. So let me ask you another one, because I think, again, this comes from, again, the duplicities and the questions and the engagements you get from the MSP leaders that are just starting to those that have the experience. But what are you noticing today when you think about some of these MSPs that are just getting their start? What would you say if you're going to give one or two quick recommendations for the person watching this today saying, hey, listen, I am in year one, I'm drowning, I think I'm going to get this thing figured out, but what advice are you giving to that individual right now?
Yeah, so I'll give you two key pieces of advice that I just shared last night when I was at user group. So these are legitimate complaints that MSPs bring up at whatever stage of their journey, but usually near the start. The first one is the clients don't appreciate the value that they bring to the table. And what I typically find out when I dig a little bit deeper into that is that the MSP is more focused on time than they are on the value they bring. So I was speaking to one MSP and they were saying, hey, we print a list of tickets for our clients every month to show them what we've done. I'm like, why do you do that? Because the client's not bothered about all of the problems that they've experienced. What you should be saying to the client is, hey, due to our hard work, you don't have to do anything with your IT. You can get on and do what you do best, which is running your business. So the difference there is it's not about the amount of effort that you've put in, it's the amount of value that you deliver. And I think this is a fundamental tenet of managed services that so many MSPs, maybe when they start out, and I did this myself, Jeff, I came from the break fix background, time and materials. You see a problem, you fix it, and you go away. That's not the way modern IT works. What we need to be doing now is proactively looking to minimize the issues that the client experiences. And then if we minimize the issues the client experiences, the client's happy, but we are certainly happy because our profit margins go up and up and up. Now, the second problem that you'll come across if you're doing managed services well is your client who has come from a place of pain. They're experiencing the pain, they're experiencing all these fires, you've put them out. And after about 6 months, maybe 12 months, the client isn't experiencing any pain. And the most common question that MSPs then get asked by their clients is, what is it we're paying you for? And they ask that question because they have got short memories. They don't remember the pain. They don't remember all the things that you had to fix. So the advice I would give to MSPs is once you get good at doing managed services, you need to be using that spare time that you freed up. Instead of firefighting, go out to your client's site and do what I call floor walks. Now, I know your video show, your podcast goes out to MSPs all over the world. So I'm very appreciative in different geographies, COVID-19, the restrictions are different. But back in the day when I ran my MSP business, I used to go and I used to dispatch my engineers to client sites with little or no excuse. I'd say, go and change the UPS cable or go and label something up or whatever it might be. But then when we were on site, first of all, we got visibility. So the client said, oh, the tech guys are here. And then I used to get my engineers to tap people on the shoulder and say, hey, how's it going? Is there anything I can help with? And that uncovered a whole heap of things. It uncovered festering issues that would otherwise have festered. It uncovered sales opportunities, But ultimately, it said to that partner, to that client, we're here and we've got your back. Just because you're not experiencing issues day to day, we've still got your back. So it's a weird thing, isn't it, Jeff? You start out trying to minimize the amount of time that you spend on site because you've got wonderful RMM tools and all the rest of it, and we can do most things remotely. But if you do that really well, then you've got to start being intentional about the time that you spend on site, because otherwise the client's not going to feel the pain. They're not going to see the visibility of what you're doing, and they're going to say, what is it we're paying you for? So there's a contradiction there, but it's an interesting situation. I've gone through it and I see that regularly happening with MSPs. So that would be my advice to them.
Well, what I like about that, Richard, is that, you and I, again, we're talking a little bit prior to us recording, and we talked a little bit about both of our experiences in the MSP space. And I love that you just hit on going out and visiting clients, because this was a thing that I love to do with my techs, is going in and monthly just walking the space of our client and learning more about their business. That, that was one of the funnest things I could do, was to meet a CEO and simply ask the question, tell me more about your journey and let me see your business. And to ask a CEO of a small business that question, that's like saying, hey, tell me more about your kids. They can't wait to gush, right? Oh my gosh, let me show you this. Oh, did you realize that we're just hiring 4 new people? Really, 4 new people? Huh. Turn to the tech. Did you realize they're hiring 4 new people? No. So there's these great aha moments that happen there. And I love the fact that there's a pivot from, well, let me go through everything we did in your tickets, and these are the things that we handled. You're right. It's extremely reactionary, where you want to go, listen, we took care of this. We should be forgettable in this instance. We want to have a proactive positioning in your business, right? We want to have a seat at the table that can drive technology initiatives to actually help drive your business, right? This is the other piece I would love to hit on, is saying technology needs to not be a cost center, but it needs to be an enabler to your success in your small business, right? Welcome to today's world. Leverage us. Yeah. Let us supercharge what you're doing. And if people, their minds would be blown. Their minds would be blown where technology could integrate. And Richard, I'm sure you've seen this. It's just simply saying, tell me more about your business. What do you do from your processes and your procedures, and see how tech can help you automate, get rid of some of these, what I consider low-hanging fruit, high-lift tasks. Let technology take it over, right?
Yeah, this is the exciting part of running a modern managed service provider business. It's not about Ethernet cables. It's not about routers. It's not about switches. It's not even about desktops and server support. It is like nearly everybody I know, Jeff, including you and I, got into this industry because fundamentally we love helping people. So, I mentioned earlier on in my sort of origin story, I'm a techie geek. I love playing with technology, but what I've realized over the years, I love helping people more. Yes. Because otherwise I would not be doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't be writing books, of those things. So for anybody listening today and thinking, well, where can I add value to my clients? Exactly what Jeff just said there. Sit down with them, ask them about their processes, ask them about the systems that they use or use, as is more often the case, and say to them, hey, here's how we can help you to do things faster, better, and cheaper than you're doing it at the moment. And this can be transformational for small businesses. Now, we've seen a lot of this move forward as a result, thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a terrible thing worldwide, but from the MSP perspective, I'm going to be really upfront and honest here and say it was a seismic shift, because I spoke to MSPs back in March 2020 when this all kicked off. And they were saying they were the superheroes. They were the ones who kept small businesses running, because all across the world, whichever geography you were in, people were calling their MSPs, calling their IT solution providers and saying, can you help me get my entire business working from home? And we did it. And we worked hard, we worked long, but we did it. However, think of the frustration. We've been speaking to clients for years about the benefits of moving to the cloud. We've been speaking to clients for years about the benefits of having business grade equipment. We've been speaking to clients for years about the benefits of online backup and data security. And our clients, for the most part, for many parts, have said, yeah, we'll get around to that when we get around to it. And then all of a sudden, March 2020, whack, they're like, can you turn the switch and move us to the cloud? What? Okay, yeah, we'll do that because we haven't got a choice. But it was it was a time of heroes, but it was a frustrating time with reflection because we had been telling clients about this. But if there's one good thing that came out of that whole horrible situation, was that all across the world, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, enterprises, and everything in between started viewing business, any business, as being a technology business. Because let's face it, you cannot run a business nowadays without technology. You just can't do it. There might be some rare exceptions, but any business is a technology business. And to run a technology business, you need a good partner to help you with the tech. So we fast forward to today. And for those of you who play buzzword bingo, when you go to like MSP conferences, you might have heard things like digital transformation mentioned, and you're like, yeah, there's a buzzword, tick it off. If we fast forward to today, digital transformation is no longer a buzzword. It is a gold mine of opportunity for MSPs to do everything you talked about, Jeff, to help people. So you sit in front of them and say, how do you run your business? Tell me about your baby. Okay, let's see how we can make this work even better for you and your staff. So it's a really exciting time to be a managed service provider.
I completely agree with you. And it's fascinating to listen to you tell that story because again, it takes me back. I remember March like it was yesterday, and COVID was just beginning. And it's kind of like the running joke in our office at the time. We're like, we'll see you guys in a week. And then week 3, we're still working from home. And client after client after client, which, my brain is going back going, oh my gosh, I can remember we met with them 6 months ago on how we needed to get to the cloud. And we met with them 7 months ago on how we needed to get to cloud and what we could do to give them some diversity regarding accessibility and their employees. And all of a sudden now COVID hits and it goes, hey, remember that thing we talked about? Yeah, I need that done today. And all of a sudden it was, well, get in line. Let's get,
yes.
Let's get you taken care of and let's see what we can do versus what we can't do and our staff. And you hit absolutely the proverbial nail on the head. So to that point, we see the world of businesses and they've changed and they're looking at technology as an enabler. People are rethinking how they're running their business and leveraging tech. Where do you see the MSP space in 2 years? Because I agree with you. I think there's a ton of room for growth, but I'd love to get your perspective on where it's going.
Yeah. So the number one thing for me would be collaboration. So I alluded to it earlier when I was saying, if you were running an MSP today, of course, you've got to have a culture of cybersecurity, but you really need outside expertise because that market is running, that sector is growing and running way faster than any one MSP can keep up with. So if I was to fast forward 2 years in the MSP space, I would say that we as MSPs should be having conversations with clients about digital transformation, but we should not necessarily be the people who are delivering all of the change. Now, let me elaborate on that. When I ran my MSP business, we sat down and we spoke to clients and they might say to us, hey, we need help with a sales system. We need help with CRM. Can you help us with that? Now, the temptation, Jeff, is to go, absolutely, CRM, it's a piece of software. We can get that sorted. But it's not. It's not Microsoft Office. It's a whole different ball game. So what we did, we built up relationships with a CRM company who specialized in this stuff. And so when our client said to us, can you help us with CRM? Yes, we absolutely can. Let us introduce you to our partner who can help you with the expertise that you need to deliver a CRM solution. Now, many MSPs get a little bit sort of confused or disbelieving of this situation because they say, well, if I'm not the one delivering the work for the clients, why does the client need me? But if you deliver enough of that value, if you make yourself at the center of a network of experts of collaborative partners, you suddenly become that elusive thing that we talk about, which is a trusted partner. You become the center of their network of trust. And that, my friends, is way more valuable than any amount of Ethernet cables that you could plug in or out, or any amount of servers that could be configured. Your clients will treat you in the same way that they look at their solicitor, their lawyer, their accountant, somebody that they go to, not only for the bread and butter, yeah, getting the accounts done, getting the IT done, whatever, but they go to because they trust them, and they trust their judgment, and they trust their network of people. So that's a long answer to your question, Jeff, but I think if we fast forward 2 years' time, I would encourage every MSP today to be building relationships with other technology companies who utilize and deploy technologies that you're not an expert in. So some of the areas for growth here would be SharePoint, voice over IP, CRM, SEO, web design. Yeah, these are all things that MSPs could do. Should you do it? Heck no. You should work with partners who can do it to a much higher standard, and you focus on your core competency, which is being the trusted advisor for your clients. So I hope that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. You know, one of the topics I think we seem to land on in so many of these episodes, and we go full circle, and people are always saying, wow, you're in tech and you guys are always talking about tech, but we always see a pivot from the IQ to the EQ, where you focus on the emotional intelligence and the relationship. And the rest seems to take care of itself, because I always like to remind people, like, remember, people want to hire an MSP because, let's get it straight, they love their business. They don't love tech. They don't understand tech. They don't have a passion for it. Your passion is tech, but you need to start with first being passionate about the CEO that has a problem. You want to be passionate about solving the problem in a way that's simple. I love what you said earlier, become forgettable, because you're doing all the right things, right? It's all the right things that are taken care of. And ultimately build that relationship where somebody sees you as a trusted advisor. I love the direction, and I love the authenticity in saying, listen, you do not have to be a master at everything, because I think also too, those that try to do it, you will go broke in your MSP, because you can't.
Oh yeah.
You can't do it. It's impossible. Find your niche, stick to it, and build your client base around it. And I think too, within that network, remember, have that be a referral game, right? We talk a lot about the giver's gain. Referring someone in, that's going to come back to you, right? Just knowing that you're that subject matter expert. So a lot of great advice in this episode, very purposeful, very thoughtful. I'd like to ask this to all of our guests before we call it an episode, but Richard, what advice would you give to your younger self? What are going to be these 1 or 2 nuggets you tell to yourself if you hit the rewind button to 20 some odd years ago, where there was a guy who loved tech and said, I've got an idea?
The first thing that I would give, and again, you just mentioned EQ versus IQ. You know, earlier on, I was somebody who reacted rather than responded to situations, and I think that comes, that wisdom comes with age. You know, that's part of it. But I would, the advice, if I could go back in a TARDIS, I'm a big Doctor Who time travel geek, or a DeLorean, I'd go back there, speak to younger Richard. I'd say to him, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And, you know, as I've got older, if we just touch briefly on the mental health aspect of running an MSP, it is a challenge. And I'm speaking to so many MSP owners. You know, I'm quite open about my mental health challenges, and I speak about it. And I get MSP owners who get in touch with me and they're saying, I thought I was the only one. You're not the only one. You're not the only one. You know, it's a tough gig. And we can be our own biggest critic. So if I was to go back, I would say to younger Richard, first of all, I'd say, man, I miss having hair. You look really good, mate. And secondly, I would say, it's going to be okay. Look, don't stress about things. It's going to be all right. I think the other thing that I would say to younger Richard would be that decision you're laboring over about whether to get a PSA tool, a professional services automation tool. Don't mess about, mate. Just go and get the PSA tool. Because once I got that PSA tool in my business, you know, things started to move at a speed. So there we go. A mixture of the emotional and the practical for you there, Jeff.
I think it's a great bit of advice. Richard, Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of MSP Insights. Anything, last bit of wisdom, direction you want to share with our viewers before we call it an episode? Because again, there is a bunch that could get unpacked on this episode. I know you are just a plethora of knowledge and wisdom. Where can people find out more information from you?
Thank you, mate. That is very, very kind of you. It's been an absolute honor to speak to you. If any of your audience and the data community have got value from these MSP insights that we've shared today, I actually send a letter out to the MSP community every Tuesday via email, and it's called MSP Insights as well. So if anybody, enjoyed what I rambled on about today, if you go to tublog.co.uk/NL for newsletter, you can sign up for my MSP Insights every week. And I hope you enjoy further ramblings from me.
Love it. You heard it. Go check it out. Get the insight, get the guidance. RIchard Tubb, thanks so much for joining us.